Week 4 has ended of my human in the loop experiment, where I am surrounding myself with as much AI as I can to see how I can improve my productivity, change how I would work, and also, more importantly, figure out my place in this world of AI so that I can add maximum value rather than this ridiculous notion that the AI people have that it's going to replace us. So, the experiment, for those of you who are first to this, is how far can I push creating what would look like a publishing business using AI? How far can I go myself before you need other people to come in, and what would that look like? So this week rather, we focused on building in YouTube analytics and LinkedIn analytics. So I moved now from this point of trying to guess what will resonate to having access to the data, and all of this within Claude. So I can say what's working well on LinkedIn, and it doesn't just give me some nonsense guess based on its training, say, oh, this works well. It actually goes in, retrieves the data from LinkedIn, that our data anyway, and gives us that information. So all of that I'll show in what I call mini learnings. Right? So what I'm now able to do is I'm now able to go into Claude and say, I have got these 3 content ideas on YouTube. Look at what's worked in the past. Give me an idea of titles and shorts. And it does that instantly, like by connecting with the YouTube API, which is a connector that we've built. And again, show you that in a minute. And the same is true for LinkedIn. So I can ask questions of it. Give me the most resonant post that we have published. And it won't just guess at it. It'll again go and get the data. The most important thing that I built, which was what I call my voice to action integration. I'm now able to, I kind of think best when I'm walking around in circles in my kitchen. And I'm now able to, while I'm doing that, record a very lengthy voice note about a piece of content or actions we need to take, record that as a voice note, store it into Google Drive, have that picked up, transcribed, and turned into actions by Claude. Again, we'll show you that in a mini learning. But the reason why that was so important, because all the sort of chat interfaces where you're having a conversation is not really what I wanted. And the whole premise of the human in the loop experiment is to mold this technology to how I work, which may be different to how you work, but making it useful. And the way I work best is by spending a bit of time assimilating my thoughts and then just talking those thoughts through in a long voice note. It can be 10 minutes. And what I then want is I want those, I don't want them transcribed. I want them put into a format that is now useful to me, either for creating content or for putting in action items that move the strategy forward. So what we learned was that by linking to this data, and I'm going to record a separate video which says LLMs are not that smart, because they are, they pretend to be. But when you then give them this real life data, they can be more useful than just giving you guesses. So that live linking really did help us get to better titles, better structure, better shorts. Not the content itself. I think that still needs to, especially if you don't want to just regurgitate what everybody else is saying, I think that content still needs to originate from a creator, a human creator with some imagination and intelligence. Otherwise, you're just duplicating what everybody else is saying, is my view anyway. One other thing, which was a big learning in this week, was I wanted a way of categorizing all the content to a structure that allows us to create story arcs more effectively. And there's this rush to, oh, an agent will do that. Yes, it will. And it did, but it was not as reliable. I spent 3 or 4 days tinkering with this agent and prompts and everything. It just wasn't reliable. And it was a salient lesson. There are other ways of doing stuff than just shouting out the answer of, hey, build an agent. So what we did is we created embeddings for all our content. The intent is to share that in separate videos so you can understand what that means. And embeddings are okay, I'm going to really simplify it. Basically, it turns words into vectors. So any of you have kids and you saw one of the Despicable Me's, you've got vector, you've got magnitude and direction, and that's literally the same thing. So you've got your entire piece of content, and you know its magnitude and direction, and then you've got a whole list of categories, you know their magnitude and directions, and by comparing the magnitude and direction of the embeddings, you get matches, and that was so much better. One of the side note observations is that even though Google invented the concept of transformers, embeddings, and so on, trying to get it to work and try to get them from Google Cloud was just weirdly way too complex. It was just much easier to use the OpenAI API. And I think that is one area where if you're not a massive programmer, the OpenAI API is way more accessible to you and much easier to use. Google may have the better product. It's the Betamax VHS thing. So that brings me on to what broke. And I've already said it. The initial attempts at content categorization, it was over-engineered using agents. And again, salient lesson. Don't have to have an agent for everything. And the other thing is that there is so much noise out there about people shouting, at least I'm in it because I'm doing this experiment. Oh, here's another way of building an agent. Here's another way of building an agent. Here's another way of building an agent. I think all of these automation platforms are a bit like when CRM first came along. They're now chasing features and functions. I don't think it is helpful to jump from one to the other or to the other unless your chosen platform materially cannot do it, because they will all be chasing features and functions and they'll all come together and they'll normalize the same way as every CRM is basically normalized in terms of its functions and so on. One just works better for how you want to work than the other. But essentially, they all have the same feature list, right? It's how they charge you. And if you're Salesforce, you need like a whole external support network to use it because it's so complicated, but that's a subject for another time. So this jumping around, going to stop that. So where we are now, we're changing from where we had to start off with, like best guess posting, to now being very sure that something will create some level of resonance. We are going to be focusing on making the APIs, turn them into much more deeper analytics. And now we're going to start moving towards more consistent click-through rate optimization based on our YouTube performance data. And we're getting some really good views on that. So thank you for that. So next week's focus is, now that we have all these listeners, The hypothesis I'm going to test is how well does content that performs well on similar looking platforms, how well can you transpose that knowledge to other platforms? Because that'll be a really good of which patterns can you, for example, take from LinkedIn and apply to, say, YouTube Shorts or YouTube, and vice versa. This week has been probably the most exciting week of working in this way with my chosen AI stack. And the big lesson from the last 4 weeks is the important thing was to carefully sit down and ask, what do I want to do? And how do I want to work with my tooling? And that has been just such a game changer because I can now work with Claude, OpenAI in a way that adds value to me and by inference then value to the project, rather than feeling like I need to work how I feel they intend me to work. And by they, it's the big day, the people who create these products. I think that's not the value. I don't think that's the promise. The promise is we can bend these to really work in how we as individuals choose to work. Some of us are much more text-based. Some of us are much more voice-based. Some of us work better in sharing, let's say, videos and so on. Yeah, we each have very unique ways in which we work well, we create value well. And for me, the biggest win was I now have a tool that I feel I can mold to my preferences much, much better than any other sort of SaaS type tool that I've had before. You always have to compromise. You always have to memory line and go, oh, that needs that. And then you have to click into that. I hope that makes sense. Productivity wise, we got 7 videos published. Channel stats are at 11,800. 74 subscribers from 0. Not bad, I think. 69 total videos. And now some very clear opportunities of where we should push content. There is some content where I think there is a lot of value in the message, but the lesson learned there is going to be shared in another short learning, which is don't always listen to your AI. Anyway, thank you for watching. I'll see you on the next one. There was a lot in this one because it was really like the last 3 weeks were building, refining how it works. This week was probably the first week where I got to about 70% of how I envisage working with this type of technology to help my productivity, which is why so much got done this week. So it is a validation that this can work. And it's also a validation is that you can make it work the way you want it to work.